and welcome. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. This is Moneycontrol reporting from the World Economic Forum Annual Summit in Davos. Now, day 3, it is today. Some important headlines have come out of the several panels and discussions that have taken place inside the Congress. And on the outside, where I am at the moment, there is a lot of chatter. As Davos is almost coming towards an end now, and the forum comes towards an end, lots of conclusions have been drawn and a way forward finally looks a little bit clearer. We'll take you through all of that. First up, the headlines.
IMF's Geeta Gopinath believes advanced economies will be back on the growth path by 2024, says the Ukraine war has been a major setback to recovery efforts world over as central banks negotiate high inflation. Billionaire George Soros warns the Russian invasion of Ukraine could be the start of another world war, calls Russia and China as the greatest threat to the open society. EdTech startup UpGrad's founder Ronnie Screwvala tells Moneycontrol at Davos the revolution of reskilling is the next buzzword, puts the churn in startup valuations as revalidation of valuations. Top drug maker Pfizer plans to sell its entire portfolio of branded drugs at cost price in as many as 45 low-income countries. This ambitious program was announced on the sidelines of the WEF summit in Davos. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla said the company will begin shipping to 5 African countries before the end of this year.
The big headline today came from Geeta Gopinath, where she talked about the timeline on when she expects economies, the advanced ones, and the others actually to get back on track. The number on her mind is 2024. She also said that developing economies, on the other hand, will be 5% below where they would have been otherwise. The other key takeaway today came from billionaire George Soros, who had quite a provocative statement to make. He said that the best way to end the war and preserve our civilization is to defeat Putin as soon as possible. Also, further predicted that Ukraine certainly has a fighting chance in the war. All right, moving on from global issues to looking at Davos from an India lens now. A key headline today came from Anil Agarwal as well. In conversation with my colleague Shireen Bhan, he went on to say that he can only buy 5% additional stake in Hindustan Zinc. And when asked about commodity prices, he said that inflation is only going to accelerate. Listen in.
You were hoping for BPCL, but that's off the table for now. Are you still interested once it comes back on the table?
No, let them give it to the shareholders. See, the privatization happened in UK. We have privatized British Airways. It is with the shareholder. So, we privatize British Petroleum. Same thing they should do for their own, for the company. Why to give it to Anil Agarwal? You can give 20% of the company to the private. 80% should be, and 5 times more value will be created. Huge revenue for the government. So, I'm very optimistic.
Hindustan Zinc, it seems like the wheels are finally moving on the residual stake sale. Have you heard from the government on that?
Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar? So this is important, and this will move. Whatever you are hearing, I'm hearing. So when it happens, there's always slip between cup and lips. So we'll wait and watch.
So have you got the funding ready as and when the government were to go in for this?
We are not a buyer. They are not a buyer. It will go to the market, and market will buy it.
So you won't?
I'll buy, maybe I can buy officially maybe 5%. That's all we'll do.
And that is what you are looking at? Will you buy even that 5% which you are allowed?
Yeah, we'll see what is the price, what it is, but 5% we can buy out of 26%.
Next up, I spoke with Ronnie Screwvala and discussed with him the future of EdTech in India. Also his key takeaways from Davos, how the space is going to evolve in the times to come. And also, where exactly is the startup party?
There's no ice at the back, so there is actually no freezing. There's no freezing at Davos, and there's no freezing on any funding.
How clever.
Really, there isn't. But it's drizzling, and it's raining, and it's cloudy, and that keeps a good environment going. Look, right here in Davos, the last 2 days, and I just watched an Africa session. Before that, we were talking about logistics. Almost the common theme around, outside of his globalization ending, is the revolution of reskilling. Not ever has that focus been more than today, not just in India, but around the world. Not in just emerging markets, but around the world, in advanced markets. And I think people are finding that the next pull in terms of power, in terms of economy, is going to come where countries really focus on lifelong learning and what they call the reskilling revolution. So I think we're sitting at an incredible cusp. Now, if you take the media party in India, where you build something, move the circle, take a poster boy, tear up the poster boy situation, and I mean that in a constructive manner. I come from media, so don't get me wrong, is that there would be some companies where you pursue a valuation and you go for it because that's part of the chest thumping moment. Now, there is absolutely no freeze in anything. Of course, when you defocus, when you raise a lot of money, actually you can either spend it on marketing or you can spend it on defocus situations. People hit glass ceilings. Glass ceilings are supposed to be broken. What they do actually is then expand horizontally. So I think what happened in the last 1.5 to 2 years, because of excess capital in EdTech overall, I would say excess because actually really good education and really good EdTech doesn't require that kind of capital. For the first 5 years at UpGrad, we didn't raise any external money at all. We just founder-funded it. It wasn't bootstrapped at all. It was absolutely going along in the way it is. So what you do is either you defocus or you look at M&As of an expensive nature, which could be sometimes for buying revenue, or you're spending it on marketing, or what you think is marketing, but actually it's just creating awareness, where the effectiveness of marketing is not there. So I think that hubris has stopped because the 10 maverick investors who have come into and funded these startups, all for good reason because they've charged up the economy, now suddenly find that they're having an issue with the same valuation that they thought was the right valuation 6 months back. So I think that's a small coterie of founders and investors who, there's nothing wrong with that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so is a valuation from that perspective. Take that stand and go forward.
Okay.
So I don't think anything is frozen. For any rock-solid business, there's always capital. Besides which, I'm a firm believer that in the ranking order of success of building a long-term organization, capital comes almost fourth out of 5 list. Never first.
Okay.
For the people who look at it first, it's a problem.
Okay, let's talk about valuations then, because that's where you see some correction happening.
I did?
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone's got their valuation right now. Now it's a question of revalidation of those valuations. I don't think correction happens that easily. It's a question of revalidation of valuations. As I said, when you've done your last round, the next round could be a down round. I think that will depend on a company-to-company basis. But I do not think we can make a sweeping stage or a sweeping statement at a very critical juncture where overall EdTech and overall reskilling, especially for a country like India, Africa, and other markets in the world, is at the cusp of something massive.
Also, day 3 started with a very interesting panel outside the Congress today, which was organized by HCL. They talked about what exactly is purpose-led metaverse going to be like. I spoke with the CTO, Kalyan Kumar, and we had an interesting fireside chat on which way metaverse is really going across the globe and what is the India story there. This is a fireside chat with KK from HCL. He's been talking at length all morning about the purpose of and the potential of metaverse, while all of us have been a little concerned as well. Excited, but concerned. So we've picked up actually 3 potential areas for metaverse in India, and we'll start with KK and we'll come down to whether or not it's working, what exactly is going to happen there. KK, first one is education for you. Hit it up.
Learning disability is not acknowledged in India at all. Most 9 out of 10 times we always try to hide behind this and say good or bad or you're average or not. I think metaverse has a potential to bridge those learning disabilities, which means kids can learn in the way it suits them. Some are visual learners, some are experiential learners, some are more interactive learners, and some are studious learners. I think allows you to bridge that gap. So that's one advantage I really see.
Okay, but there is a massive digital divide in India. It's going to take decades to do so. All the edtech companies right now in the current climate are already moving into a hybrid model. They've understood if they want to survive, they'll have to go back offline as well.
India has got one of the largest mobile penetration. I think the dependency on this is how fast you roll out broadband infrastructure down to the edge, including using wireless. I agree, that's a big impediment, but that's only a time window. It's going to happen. We leapfrogged in COVID mobile payments in the country. After 2 years I visited, I saw pretty much everything going on mobile from payment standpoint. So I think we are leapfrogging. It's going to happen, and I think there's just maybe a 2-3 year gap or maximum 4. I think the kind of 4G, 5G networks getting rolled out, India would get covered pretty much down to the village.
Let's move to number 2. Number 2 for me is the massive scope of India actually being at the head of this bandwagon. And many say what the bus on Web 1, Web 2 was sort of lost, but Web 3 something India should really jump on.
See, India is one of the world's largest consumer markets. It's one of the biggest middle class buying power in the system. And we love our jewelry, we love our fashion, we love our own this thing. I think Metaverse has a unique potential because you could have a twin version, the NFTs, the ability to own. I think it's a simple example. Someone was talking to on the street yesterday saying that, he was asking me, if you like gold, you will like crypto, correct? Because the value of that whole thing, it's got an asset value. But
you can't say that any longer.
Yeah.
Not after the current bloodbath. And speaking to a woman about jewelry, I'll tell you the touch and feel is everything.
Yeah, but that's where they're looking at is when you want to be in the metaverse, people want a replica of what they had in the physical worlds there, and vice versa. And we're seeing that in a lot of customers and some of our large retail customers. They're creating an NFT version of the real product and vice versa. So you could buy a product on the NFT world, you get shipped a real version, or you buy a real version, you get the replica of that in NFT. So we're seeing some of those early use cases. Consumer potential is there. Gaming, look at gaming in India, correct? Exploding in a big way. I think there is potential on the consumer side, but again, the hindsight, I think what you asked about, the risk is too much of digital addiction. So I think it's very important. I always tell a people example, you want to be de-addicted, start playing test matches for 5 days, correct? You don't need to worry about being in the metaverse all the time.
Okay, number 3 for you.
I think enterprise adoption significantly, training, skilling. We're going to be a big manufacturing hub, correct? How do you train so many people on all these different plant, machinery, equipment? It's going to be hybrid work is going to continuously be on place. Modernization of skills. I think metaverse is a huge potential in terms of high-risk jobs. In India, we still have so many people doing high-risk jobs without much training, correct? I think it's such a big factor. I think there are a lot of areas where the enterprise potential and the use cases are going to be immersed on this.
Also towards the end, we've been speaking to lots of people here at Moneycontrol, but one thing one cannot miss is the fact there are so few women leaders. One of our first interview with the woman here has been with Neelam Chibbar. She's part of the Niti Ayog and talked about women in leadership. Also very interestingly, there is an equality lounge in here where the matter of gender equality, equal pay, and now that marrying the Web 3 world, that thriving conversation is going on. Here's a glimpse.
In India, it's been a boon. The digital payments thing has been a boon. The smartphone payments has been a boon. And our women are getting so empowered to go there, do that, and they all say that if we have a phone, we are looked at with such respect in our families. When we talk about, our payments, our bank accounts, because all the women who work in our collectives have their own bank accounts. So I think this formalization, which even the Indian government is pushing, that informal cash, informal, everyone must have a Jan Dhan bank account, is the right way to go. Yeah, because it is keeping the women's money in their own hands, in their own accounts, and it's making them even better in how they use their money.
So we've discussed tools that have helped so far, perhaps some that can be worked upon more. But we're at Davos. It's about the word here, second most word here used is innovation, right? What is going to be the next big sort of innovation when it comes to gender equality?
Well, it's out here. I'm pushing it left, right and center. Gender is central to climate action. It is the most pivotal thing to climate action. I'm writing a paper on it, but climate is not about just reducing carbon or reducing emission or reducing waste. It's about reducing vulnerabilities. It is globally accepted that climate action is about reducing vulnerabilities.
I'll be booed if I don't raise up the issue of equal pay. And so I want to understand your thoughts on that. And again, one solution that can actually, your advice to women maybe, or one solution where you actually see this come at par.
I would just say that equal pay is a no-brainer. It should be a requisite. I mean, an equal pay okay, in rural India, it doesn't exist because women are earning less than men in rural India. But in urban India, I mean, a company that doesn't believe in rural pay, I mean, in equal pay, women shouldn't even work for it. I'm being a little
But a lot of women don't have that choice.
yeah. But in rural India, all I can say on equal pay is that we really have to strive towards it. Yeah, there is a big gap in rural India. Urban India, well, I mean, all I can say is that it's such a no-brainer.
Talking about startups, while they seem all quite optimistic even now, we wanted to understand from the government how exactly they're going to and what role exactly they're going to play in the times to come. I spoke with the secretary involved in this, Anurag Jain, and tried to understand from him what exactly will be the movement forward. He spoke at length about where he sees the startup ecosystem go from now and also about what aid government can really provide in these times.
We worked very closely with the industry. We identified 14 sectors where we came in with production-linked incentives. They are crucial sectors where there is a huge scope for creating global champions, creating import substitution. So there's a way forward. In addition to that, in this particular budget, we announced another PLI for 5G. Then we have another major program announced by Department.
The list for the PLIs have been finalized?
The PLIs we are already operational. So 14 schemes are already in the market. For about 12 schemes, the partners have been selected. They have already started in certain schemes like pharmaceuticals and electronics. The production has already increased a lot. And it's already moving. In a couple of schemes, it is in the final stages of selection of partners. With telecom scheme is in the draft stage. In addition to that, MEPT, the Ministry of Electronics, has come out with a very big program of about $10 billion support for fab and the semiconductor. So these are the priority areas which are strategic and where we see scope of India becoming global champion.
Right. I want to move up to startups next because that's something that you have a very keen interest on and you're working very closely with them. I know a very important meeting happened today with global partners and India partners also interacting with you. Startups at the moment are at a very crucial level. Everybody watching out very carefully. There is a hiring freeze. There are firings also that are taking place at the moment. The next 2 quarters are going to be challenging.
The startup story is a transformational story for India. In 2016, when Government of India started the startup initiative, at that point of time, there were hardly about 500 startups. What it did was it changed the mindset of the younger generation. I've come across so many young entrepreneurs who have started their own startups that they wanted to do something similar, but their parents won't allow. But after when Prime Minister spoke about it, they thought it could be something good. And India, as a government, we were able to get our coordination act together. Lot of facilitative things happened. Registration, etc. online, giving lot of facilities, income tax benefits, lot of various like exemption from laws. State governments also pitched in with this thing. Plus, COVID challenge was taken up as an opportunity by India. I call it Team India. Governments played their role, facilitative policy, hand-holding support where it was required. Industry picked up the challenge and responded very well. Startups unleashed their powers of innovation, and the altruistic nature of the society also came to fore during that period. So it was like a Team India, the whole nation coming out of COVID.
Yeah, and that has been coming out very prominently. I was speaking to a couple of startups and they said in Davos, if you say you're an Indian and you know tech, there is suddenly a newfound respect the world has. And that's the kind of confidence India has built up. Where do you see the momentum going, if at all?
So that's what I'm saying. Next 25 years, as we are talking about Amrit Kal, we are in midst of framing our vision for 2047 India at 100. We see startup as the real vehicle of growth. Because next 25 years, this is going to be the economy of knowledge and innovation. And startups can really play a very, very crucial role. In just these 6 years, the startup ecosystem in India has grown to be the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after US and China. In 2021, in spite of the pandemic, we added 44 unicorns. And in terms of adding new unicorns in a year, we were ahead of even China. We were second best in the world. And at the present time, we are adding about 80 startups every day. That is, speed is highest in the world.
Even
So,
right now, even in the
right now,
current climate.
Even right now. So that's what I'm saying. Given that India has its own demographic advantage, India is a large market. The way Indian policies, we have been able to sort of navigate it somewhere, like there are two poles right now coming in the international world, but we are navigating somewhere in the middle, ensuring our ties are more or less intact everywhere. So of course, we have to have the impact of the global events. We have had, but this impact will be relatively less pronounced in India compared to other economies. And especially I would also like to say what Honorable Prime Minister yesterday talked about, the transparency, trust and the timeliness. So India's response is timeliness in a way. Inflation started going up, you see the whole of government functioning, and across the government there were huge announcements day before, and which we hope that it would cut the rate of growth of inflation by 60-70 basis point. So if the government is nimble, pragmatic, has its ears to the ground, it does help.
Also, Moneycontrol caught up with Minister Hardeep Puri, trying to understand from him how exactly pricing on petroleum is going to work, his key takeaways from Davos and how the engagement has been so far.
I'm not someone who subscribes to the fact that there is a shortage of oil in the world. There is a shortage of oil being released into the markets. And if you release enough oil and you get an equilibrium on demand and supply, prices will come down by themselves. That's my first submission. And so therefore you could reverse this. If you don't reverse it, what is the issue? You are then looking at stagflation. Even the R word has started rearing its ugly head.
All right, that's all we could pack on day 3 from Davos. With my camera person Saroj, Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor for Moneycontrol.